Well, number one, FBI, you must admit that I am the Lord and Savior.
And he's like, well, we are just not going to do that, Mr. Koresh.
Well, then you're going to hate number two. You must admit I am the Lord.
We're going to pass on number two, too.
How about a good public speaker?
You're pretty good. You're pretty good.
All right.
You're pretty good, yeah. Krippendorf.
Are we ready?
Yeah. Oh, is that recording? Oh, good.
Are we recording? Welcome to the last podcast on the left, the spookiest podcast you're ever going to jack off to.
Do you jack off to this? If you do, shut it off. I shut it off right now. Stop jerking off to this.
Shut it off in 5 minutes as soon as you finish. We don't want a disappointed young jizz on our hands.
That's true. That's true. Just pause the podcast and jerk off to your own selected material.
I am Ben Kissel.
Henry Zabrowski.
Marcus Parks.
And this is truly the sickest podcast around today. Our main focus is going to be on the fascinating world of cults and all they have brought to our society.
That's the thing. The only thing about cults, I would never be in one because I hate wearing uniforms.
Well, there are some more freedom cults. I'm not sure if the Waco, Texas people were necessarily forced to wear uniforms. I think it was more of a laid-back cult casual, if you will. Sort of nice jeans. You could wear a
button-down shirt. You tuck it in, though.
And then, of course, it was always Palm Tree Fridays.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to wear your palm tree shirts.
You know, David Koresh was not, I mean, he had the long hair.
No, he was
always very cash.
And you know what we're talking about, too? It's like see the thing, I was reading about it. So he's part of a thing called the Branch Davidians.
Right. Well, I mean, he is the Davidian.
He is the guy who is like supposed to be sort of reincarnated Jesus type. And that they have to verify it. Did you read the thing about how he got to be in charge of the Branch Davidians?
No, tell me about it.
Him and another, I forgot the name of his competing guy, another one of his, it's like a cousin of his, were fighting for it, and they dug up graves. They dug up the grave of the former runner of Branch Davidian and had a resurrection off, where they tried to raise him from the dead. I don't think it happened, but somehow they chose a winner.
It was just his cousin behind the dude waving his arms. Be like, I'm alive now, I'm alive. And David's like, he is not alive. I see you behind him.
I see it.
And then David goes, and he's far better puppeteering skills. He just puts like fishing wire to him. He's walking, obviously.
He could have been a very skilled Jeff Dunham type.
Absolutely.
Imagine Jeff Dunham's actually very similar in personality to David Koresh.
I would assume so. This is interesting. As we all remember back in 1993, we were young pups. But the Waco, Texas raid was conducted by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Yeah. It wasn't even the FBI. I always thought it was the FBI. It was the ATF.
Didn't they do that too? Because they tried to traffic in all like the AK-47s and stuff like that, and basically they got them on arms.
So that was the charge, because I guess you really can't charge somebody for their religious beliefs, right? You have to toe a fine line. You can't just. There's
no like cuckoo laws. Well, here's the law. You broke the law being cuckoo today, and so you're going to jail.
You're going to Wacky Taffy Lands, where all you get to eat is Cheerios and string cheese.
Thank God. Let's go there.
Well, their justification for actually invading the place was the children. It's like there were children being molested in there, which they weren't.
Well, David Koresh set up the thing, too, where he dissolved all the marriages. Everyone was involved. Anyone who brought in, like, significant other and all the women, he was the only one allowed to have sex with them.
See, I was just going to say, I don't know what would drive people to a cult until right now. If I'm married to a robust wench who, constantly shopping at Piggly Wiggly, getting the wrong hams and whatnot with the honey glaze. I don't like the honey glaze. Everybody knows that about me, especially my wife. She should. I said, all of a sudden, this David Koresh character's like, hey, come on over.
I'll bang her for you.
I'll bang her. You're no longer married to her.
Thank God.
It would be amazing. So I assume he probably got a couple of guys in there who's just like, take my wife.
Please.
Seriously. Please take my wife. And they definitely loved Henny Youngman.
The coverage of the actual raid on the compound was one of the most terrifying things I ever saw as a child, because it was we were watching live footage.
Yeah.
Texas.
See, I found it exhilarating.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't tell. I saw a woman on fire run out of the building.
Right.
I saw that happen live. We were all like, what, 10? whenever that happened, something like that.
Yeah,
it was
12,
horrifying. It was horrifying, but I couldn't look away. And I didn't have nightmares or anything. It's a cherished childhood memory for me.
That is just quite attached. Can you imagine like just being with a girlfriend or just being with someone who instead of like letting you break up with them would rather set you both on fire?
Yeah.
You know, that's real love. That's real attachment.
I mean, it's definitely real attachment. I don't know if it's real love. Yeah, according to the old wiki here, so 6 people died in these raids, and evidently it was a 51-day standoff?
Yeah.
It was long. It was a long time.
That sounds like worse than Jimmy Carter's Iran hostage situation. 51 days. Go into the house.
Can you imagine like having to like negotiate with David Koresh for 51 days? Just talking to the craziest dude on the face of the planet.
Well, number one, FBI, you must admit that I am the Lord and Savior.
And he's like, well, we are just not going to do that, Mr. Koresh.
Well, then you're going to hate number 2. You must admit I am the Lord.
We're going to pass on number 2, too.
How about a good public speaker?
You're pretty good. You're pretty good.
All right.
You're pretty good, yeah.
The U.S. government has recognized me. That is incredible. I really wonder what went through these people's heads for 51 days. How was he able to convince them that he was still right? I guess it's the same thing as, I grew up very evangelical Christian, which frankly makes this Koresh cult look like a goddamn, kindergarten, dodgeball game. No one really gets hurt. As opposed to the way I grew up. It's bizarre to think, and I think what helps is having like the FBI out there and all these people out there so we can be like, look at them, they're attacking us. And the FBI was not coy. They were like, let's bring some tanks, some helicopters.
Oh, yeah.
Make them seem like we're friends,
Yeah. No, that's what you do, is you kind of set it up. It's like anything where you can set up we're the underdog. We're the persecuted ones, and now we have the evidence for it. We have to be right, or would they like be trying to shut us down so hard if we were the only ones who had the key to salvation? And it's just generally insane.
I must clarify here. On February 28th, that was when the ATF went in and had their raid, killing 6. But the actual FBI raid, which happened a little bit later, killed 79 Branch Davidians.
I did not know it was that high.
Yeah, 79. 21 of whom were children. And I remember when this came out.
You know they had kids with guns, too. Can you imagine being an FBI officer, going through their full SWAT gear, going through the house, 9-year-old girl with an AK-47 comes around the corner, fucking shoots you in the legs.
Welcome to Nam.
Yeah. Welcome to Nam, man.
That isn't, if you're looking at a child with a gun, that's even more scary than looking at an older man, because an older man has some bearing of reality.
Yeah.
Has some sort of self-interest to stay alive. This 9-year-old girl has no concept of life or death. All she knows is David Koresh, and she's 9, so she's going to be, what do you call that?
Prepubescent?
Not prepubescent, but when you're
susceptible to
ADHD.
Yeah.
You're just quick with the trigger. Impulsive.
Yeah.
You're 9 years old, you're impulsive.
You also you think it's a friggin' video game. I thought it would be cool. Like we were talking before, I had a sort of dark mindset as a child, and I probably would have killed someone much easier as a child than I would now.
Oh, totally. You start killing somebody at 9 years old as well. If you're in these Branch Davidians, there's no... You're rewarded for it. It's like when a dog takes a shit on the street and you're like, good boy, but when I do it, God knows everyone's up in arms.
And being a child too, and you have all these adults also telling you that the leader, the guy who's fucking mommy all the time, is also God.
Right.
So I imagine that it's pretty hard to question.
Well, what you were talking about earlier, as far as like how do you keep people going for all that time, there are a ton of videos that David Koresh recorded during that siege, and you can see completely. It's exactly like it's the persecuted minority. It's like you have to keep, going on this whole time because we're right and they are, they're like the Egyptians against the Jews, and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. A common enemy is the reason that we won World War II. Both U.S. and Russia, who hated each other and then went on for a 50-year Cold War, only united because they're like, well, I hate that guy. You hate that guy too?
Well, the
let's
Nazis
just hate
were
that guy
pretty
together.
bad. The Nazis
it's a good group to hate.
They were perfect for that. If you really want to get everyone banded up together, you just have to have, if you want to be evil, just wear a good, you have the snappy costumes, which you have the Nazis had,
right?
And very just together ceremonies, and have things called blitzkriegs.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But we were talking about last week. You were asking me about does Texas have serial killers? No, but we have cults out the ass.
I'll tell you, I just went back to Wisconsin this weekend, which is where I'm from, but I haven't been there in 5 years, and it was just so fun to see all this. There's room to grow, and I mean that's why everyone's a bit larger, and bosoms grow like pineapples. And you can totally see with the isolation out there.
Just imagine pineapple breasts.
That would be great, right?
Yeah. It would be rough. It would be rough to suckle. That would not
it wouldn't be the best cockfuck of all time.
No, you'd cut your penis.
Yeah, a little bit of blood.
Have you ever cut your penis? You ever get a little cut on your penis?
Well, not
it's pretty bad.
Not Koresh style amount of bloodshed, but I think I've had a one cock blood tear, perhaps a time or two. But you go to these small places; it's so isolated. The notion of somebody coming to town with an idea that is like progressive and new to these people is totally reasonable because, frankly, the people have ideas, but no one is there to challenge them because nobody's there around.
Yeah.
So when one voice comes in and he says mildly reasonable things, and, to some degree, he's like, once again, you're in a bad marriage, come to me. You have a bad childhood, come to me.
Yeah, because it takes all the effort out of your hands to change your life. What you have is like someone who's
it's
going
an
to
automatic change.
fix. Yeah. To give you guidance in your life when it's hard. I also, in Texas, it's also perfect.
Not only guidance, friendship, community, a reason,
a purpose.
Exactly.
In Texas too, it's perfect because there's so much space. It's so easy to isolate yourself.
Well, the last cult that was big in Texas, it was outside of San Angelo, which is not too far away from where I grew up. It was that polygamous cult. That they had a compound. They were very.
No, we're not
careful.
talking Warren Jeffs here, are we?
Yeah,
that was you talking about it.
Talk about
no, not Warren Jeffs. This is it was not a polygamous. It was more like pedophilia type thing,
like a NAMBLA type thing. They would do like a NAMBLA comedy
just
show.
A round robin of molestation for children.
How would a NAMBLA comedy show go? By the way,
I kind of love it.
I want to see the dice man of pedophiles. Look at those sweet flat tits. Oh, look how you got no pussy hair.
There's like bowls of candy everywhere, like just candy leading into the theater.
I would join his cult in a heartbeat.
You already have. I think
I'm actually going to start it.
Yeah,
I'm the leader of it.
I grew up with one an hour away that was in Abilene, and it was called the House of Yahweh, and it's still around. It's still around to this day. And they had a compound. They didn't really go out.
But that seems like it's based in Christianity.
It's based in Christianity, but so is the Branch Davidians.
Well, it's all based on
they were based on Christianity as well.
Yeah, but it's all crackpot Christianity. It's all just. It sounds like sci-fi Christianity, where they kind of talk about Jesus as sort of mystical warlord, and they think he's going to come back. And it's all it's anything about a religion that I can't stand, which is the idea that there's specific numbers. And they're talking about Branch Davidians that Jesus is going to come back. He's going to choose 1,000 to save, and they're going to go with him and live in heaven where they can all fuck each other.
People.
Yeah, and they can then come, but then they'll come back and take over the earth, the 1,000 of them, just living together.
Yeah, but fuck. Right. I mean, Heaven's Gate is one of the most ridiculous ones around.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate, and I want to call Heaven's Gate out for stealing the Green Bay Packers logo. You can't do it, Heaven's Gate. Your entire religion is based on a lie. Take a look. If you get a chance, Google Heaven's Gate. The G is the Green Bay Packers logo. This man is obviously not the most creative individual.
That is quite the graphic designer. Who did that? They must have had at least one or two. Can you imagine
the graphic designer that's going up to Marshall Applewhite? It's is this good?
Oh, do you like this? Yeah. He's got those clear frame glasses on, lives off the Bedford stop, working on his MacBook Pro, just all hipster, but then puts on the Nikes and drinks the poison. They cut off their dicks too, right?
They castrated themselves.
Make the G more like the Packers logo by any chance? They castrated. It took place in California in 1997, March 23rd. 21 women and 18 men voluntarily committed suicide in 3 different groups in 3 successive days.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. You would think after you see the first group kill themselves
and not turn to aliens.
and not come back and be your buddy and just have terrible Nike shoes on.
Yeah.
You would think you might, reconsider.
I love the fact that it was so specifically Nikes too. I really thinking about it. That was just so.
And
you ever see the fake commercials?
I was just about to say my favorite SNL commercial parody is that they're showing the final scenes like everybody dead in their beds with Nike shoes on. They're playing Revolution by the Beatles, and then at the end of it, it just says "Keds."
Oh, that's hilarious.
That was awesome.
So yeah, it was. Now, what's the name of the leader of this Heaven's Gate?
Marshall Applewhite.
Marshall Applewhite.
Which is another just
Do you like Marshall?
great. It's hard to specifically create a good cult name, like cult leader name, but that is a really good one.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
and
David Koresh is a good one. Like Jim Jones is a good, just sort of like anonymous sounding evangelical name to be the new Jesus.
And we were talking about religion earlier, and this is also, now this is actually kind of a revelation to me because I thought these ideas were actually sort of more, out of the random ether. But Heaven's Gate is also based on Christianity. But they add this unbelievable or unusual belief of UFOs.
That Hale Bopp is going to show up and pick them all up and take them to the promised land.
Which isn't every single human being terrified of being abducted by UFOs?
Not if you see it as a beautiful, wondrous thing. And again, it's all tied to sex and hedonism. It's like this thing that all sort of religions do of just you just have to be chaste, especially in Christian religions. You have to be chaste and sort of watch what you do in this life. So the next life, all you can do is bone each other.
Right.
On clouds.
So the next life, all you can do is do all the things you wanted to do on Earth.
Yeah.
But you thought it was somehow wrong. But when you're in the Lord's house, he's just like, fuck away.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I'm staring at you, but it's fine.
Yeah, that's why I have you do it up here. Just so I can look at you a little bit.
Because I jerk off to it myself. Oh, come on, God. Come on. He's talks about himself. Comes. That's all the clouds are.
Oh, God, blow God, oh, God. It's like, all right, you're a little self-centered.
All right, come on. Well, he's three people in one.
Well, that's true.
God is Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
So he's got his mouth all filled up and his asshole's doing fine.
Absolutely.
That's true about the religion. He uses
That's fun to talk about. Yeah.
He uses similar terminology as well. He has a quote here. He always said the soul is, of course, a temporary thing, the soul lives on forever, and the body's a temporary containers of the soul. Which is growing up religious. The body's your vessel. All of that sort of stuff. So it really is just an extension on things that people have already heard, but up to this point, no Heaven's Gate pastor had been caught molesting boys.
No.
There was no negative.
I don't think there were no children involved in Heaven's Gate.
No, I don't think so. It was all old retarded. 26 to 72. Yeah. That was the age range.
So fucking stupid. I just don't understand how. I guess I just would never do it. I just would not believe him. I would not believe Maple. What was it?
Marshall Applewhite.
I would not believe him for a second. I'd be like, get away from me.
Oh my God. They all died wearing armband patches reading Heaven's Gate Away Team. Heaven's Gate Away Team.
That sounds like a Japanese anime.
They're Star Trek nerds. That's all it is. That's Star Trek nerd thing.
There's a documentary out called Phoenix Lights it's another topic that we'll eventually probably broach, which is UFOs. But there was a series of sightings over Phoenix that happened during this time. They were talking about how that it was kind of connected to Hale Bopp because there was this weird thing. Oh, that's
right. This was all Hale Bopp time as well. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and people, they just thought that aliens knew that people were waiting the coming of Hale Bopp, and so we'll do a mass presentation of our existence while people already would be looking at the sky.
So they had conversations being like, oh my God, those people out there are so stupid. They don't even believe the aliens are coming for us. What a bunch of ignorant idiots. Typical ignoramus human beings. It's funny because doesn't the existence of aliens actually disprove every religion? This is really
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
Think so.
I guess.
We're no longer the golden people that everybody thought that we were supposed to be.
I think what really disproves religion is just the whole thing about it.
Reason?
Which is like
Human thought?
Yeah, just
Every
everything that's involved with having to believe that an imaginary man lives in the sky and tells you various things.
That's true. And speaking of religion, now was Jonestown. We got to talk about Jonestown here.
Now,
we had this was 1978, and we're dealing with more than 900 people died.
Now, this was also connected. The best part about this one, too, I guess it kind of runs through a bunch of cults, where it's like how much coverage of themselves they get, where it's like...
And especially nowadays, you know that, Koresh would have all of those YouTube videos.
Oh, yeah.
And
They'd
same
all
with
be uploaded
Heaven's
instantly.
Gate. It would all be a channel on one of these terrible social networking sites.
And that's the thing. They would have been on YouTube and they would have been ridiculed and it would have been over.
Or they would have gotten more followers.
Yeah,
Well, you'd have more casual followers. You'd have more people who were like doing it in their home, and then like sleeper cells who like decide to like take action in their own hands,
Right.
By watching a video on YouTube and then being like, "I'm gonna go down to the post office, take a dump at the post office." Yeah, I'll show them. I'll show them. Big.
And as a matter of fact, I think I was just thinking about current possible cults. I think that one fella, Terry Jones, the pastor in Florida, who's burning the Korans, who was just outside of a mosque with a gun, and it was shocked to be arrested
he needs
for
to be
it.
thrown in a goddamn jail. Someone needs to arrest him.
He's in it.
Yeah, he is in jail right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because he went to a mosque with a gun.
But so Jim Jones. So
we have 900 people dead.
we found. I forgot what the source of it was that we found the tapes, the ending tape. So in the Jim Jones, the end of the whole thing. What is it technically called?
The Woodstock?
No,
The Jonestown stock.
Jonestown.
Jonestown.
Oh, it was just Jonestown.
Jonestown.
What they
Yeah,
called
it's
it.
just Jonestown.
Yeah. I'll pull it up in a second. I'll give it to you.
Tired of it. 1,200 people's lives in my hands, and I certainly don't want your life in my hand. But I'm going to tell you, Christine, without me, life has no meaning. I'm the best friend you'll ever have. Well, you'll regret that this very day if you don't die. You'll regret it if you don't die. You'll regret it.
Too many people?
I saved them, but I made my example. I made my expression. I made my manifestation, and the world was not ready for me. Paul said I was a man born out of due season. I've been born out of due season just like all we are, and the best testimony we can make is to leave this goddamn world.
But they recorded their final moments. So he did it was a mass poisoning where everyone in the entire community poisoned themselves, including Jim Jones and like all the children. There was like countless children there as well because it was super family oriented.
900 people. That's a small town.
Let's get calm. To us, we had nothing we could do. We can't separate ourselves from our own people.
And some of them escaped, and some of them like left certain times. And Jim Jones would kind of like say that they were traitors. And we listened to the recording of Jim Jones, essentially just like leading the charge into the mass poisoning, where he's like trying to keep people in with him, and like
I'll tell you
hear
one
the
thing.
poison being distributed.
Hurry, my children, hurry. All I say does not fall into the hands of the enemy. Hurry, my children. Hurry. The seniors out here that I'm concerned about. Hurry. I don't want to leave my seniors to this mess. Quickly.
The only advice I could ever give to Charlie Sheen if he wants those shows to start going better, listen to Jim Jones control an audience killing themselves, some of whom were like, I don't know if we should do this, and he gets them. He always gets them.
44 minutes.
It is one of the most harrowing, intense, awful things I've ever listened to. I mean, we were also all baked out of our friggin' gourds when we listened to it too, and
Which
we were.
I think that made it far more terrifying.
Yeah, we all just sat and just listened to it in silence for like 45 minutes.
But there's something about listening to somebody's last words. It's a very bizarre thing.
And it's all super creepy too, because you hear like babies crying. God. And then it all just stops. And then
The
it's just
silence
dead silence.
is, cliche deafening.
Where's the vat? The vat. Where's the vat with the green C?
Go on for into the fine, and thank you, Dad.
The vat with the green C in, please. Bring it here so the adults can begin. Beg you, don't fail to follow my advice. You'll be sorry. You'll be sorry. That we do it than that they do it. Must trust you. You have to step across. We used to sing this world's not our home. Well, it sure isn't. As we were saying, it sure wasn't. He doesn't want to tell him. All he's doing, if they will tell him, assure these children. Some people assure these children of the relaxation of stepping over to the next plane. We've set an example for others. We've set 1,000 people who say we don't like the way the world is. Please stop. Take our life from us. We laid it down. We got tired. We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide, protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
Most people ended up drinking a fruit punch, which, hey, who doesn't like a good fruit punch?
Hey, I love Kool-Aid especially.
This is really just their senior prom. They laced it with the cyanide and the tranquilizers. And although also some people injected it into their veins. How bizarre. And by the way, Jim Jones looks like a bad country singer.
Yeah. And he had a terrible lisp.
Yeah.
He had like a very bad speech impediment, too.
You know, that seems to be the thing with a lot of these leaders. They don't particularly look charming. David Koresh, he certainly was. He was no, Harry Connick Jr.
No.
You know, the man wasn't wooing the ladies by any measure.
But the same thing we see with serial killers, where it's kind of... I mean, it's a little bit of it's a little different because serial killers' life is all private. Like their insanity is on the inside, and they like put it on people. But and the cult leaders are very public, and they need people to support them in order to sort of validate their psychosis. But it's also strange. Yeah, no, they go. It's all big public forum. But it's also. It just seems again, it's the pavilion of sort of these shiftless losers who the superiority complex,
or they just, I mean, I think the fact that he has a speech impediment, the fact that no one's ever really taken his word seriously, is the motivation to overcome.
Yeah,
I mean, to some degree, I will say, as public speakers, as we all are, obviously, we're not afraid of being on stage. The initial motivation to get on stage is never confidence.
No,
it's sheer fucking misery. Your life is miserable, and you don't know how else to express it because your parents don't listen to you. God knows your father's, too busy working, and your mother's too busy telling you about the bread she baked that was terrible. So
and you're just looking for and it's group validation. It's sort of, and then in a cult scenario, you just have everybody say it's an echo chamber. We're talking about outside.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
It's like you just have everybody agreeing with it. So everybody's backing each other up
to
stay in it.
Echo chamber too. We'll go back. It's like, and they always tend to live together in isolated areas. So so one person says something, and then there's no validating voice. There's nothing but validating voice. There's no voice from the outside. They're not having these meetings in Starbucks.
Yeah,
because if they were having them in Starbucks, someone would be like, guys, I think I'm actually a Gideon.
I'm
going to give you my Bible. It's like, I'm actually a Jewish fella. Here, you check out the Quran or whatever. There's no other voice.
The Talmud.
The Talmud.
Hey, very nice.
No, and that's
true.
And then take it back into serial killers. It's kind of the same exact thing, where their echo chamber is inside their own fucking brain, and
That's
they're
true.
constantly reiterating to themselves
And
that
similar
they're
with
right.
serial killers, I mean, I think isolation is the key to keeping a congregation on your side.
Well, Jonestown was an island in the Caribbean?
This is right. Yeah, Jonestown took place in South America.
That must have been gorgeous, though.
Oh,
And-
man.
but-
Well, have you seen the video of it, of the dead bodies? If you look around the dead bodies, then it looks great.
I mean, I just feel bad for the family on vacation. We just chose the worst weekend.
It's like, this cruise is just a bust.
It's-
Where's the Spanish food?
Smells
Where's
like
the
death.
local flair?
I don't like it. We gotta go back to Pennsylvania.
No, my mom just got back from a cruise to San Juan, and that was her main complaint. She was just like, we went to San Juan, and there was just so many dirty kids there, and we just had a terrible time. And I was like, it's a country. They live there.
Yeah.
And it's not like they have a job to wash up for.
You know, they sit and they watch the big boat full of fat Americans come.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to get the perspective of the dirty kids being like, look how weird and clean and fat they are. How do people live like that?
Very well.
Exactly.
We really enjoy ourselves.
Yeah,
we do.
it took place in South
Love being an
America.
American.
Oh, it's the best country on earth. It took place in South America, but of course it started in America, but they had to relocate. And by the way, Murder Fist, the sketch group here in New York, you guys were able to relocate 11 people. Imagine relocating 900 people. This is how much
a big
they
email
followed him. It's a huge email chain.
Yeah.
It's devastating. When are you leaving, Tammy? I was thinking Monday at 9.
Nah, Tuesday's better for me.
I gotta finish up my final 2 weeks at H&M Bank.
Okay. Let's agree to disagree. Some of us Monday, some of us Tuesday, the rest on Friday.
But we're all gonna kill ourselves, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool.
Did they start in California?
I think that they did start in California, yes.
California is another wonderful hot spot of cult
Heaven's Gate
behavior.
was California.
Yeah, and Manson.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, we'll definitely talk about Manson next. So anyway, he got 900 people out there to South America. They ended up killing the congressman, of course, which is fascinating. Listen to that footage.
Yeah.
When he announces that, some people cheer,
intense.
some people realize they're in over their heads.
Oh, yeah.
That's the other amazing thing when you listen to this footage. Some people are like, oh, he was serious. I literally just thought this was spiked with vodka, but this Kool-Aid is cyanide. You know, some people it kind of snuck up on him.
Yeah, they thought it was a symbolic thing.
Exactly.
As it should have been.
Totally should have been.
No reason to
That's
do
the thing.
that.
It would be as if the Catholic Church, when you ate the body and blood of Christ, you literally ate a small aborted baby's body and someone's true blood. No one would ever imagine that would be the case.
That would really sort out the true believers. So
That's a good
You know,
point.
at the same time.
There would probably be about 900 left in the Catholic Church as well.
Yeah, speaking of the death tape on iTunes, where it comes out, like the name of it is like the Jonestown Death Tape, and the album is the Jonestown Death Tape, but the artist is like Reverend Jim Jones of the People's Temple.
that's
Self-titled. Metallica, please. It's definitely his Black album. It is certainly the best one he's ever made. And lastly, with this guy, I think this is kind of interesting. 3 members of the cult that did not go with them, they ended up living in the capital city of Georgetown. They killed themselves after they heard about the mass deaths.
Well, of course, all their friends are dead.
I suppose,
Yeah,
but I think that's even more of a testament to how powerful this guy was in these people's lives. You know, they did not have to kill themselves. Their leader was literally dead, and they still took it upon themselves to do that.
Yeah.
I just straight up just do not get it. I just don't. It's weird how I have. Not that I have a sort of understanding of serial killers, but I cannot fathom a cultist member's mind. I don't know what.
I can't fathom the cultist member's mind, but I can definitely fathom the cult leader's mind.
That's
absolutely.
easy to figure out. Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, Henry, the greatest cult leader, which in my opinion is better than all of the cult leaders we've currently talked about because he did not kill his own people. He had his people kill Charlie Manson.
Oh,
Charles Manson,
the
man.
man.
He is just crazy.
He's an
And
absolute...
I think people wrongly classify him as a serial killer so much.
Well, he probably killed some people as well.
Yeah, but he was
He's
more,
a very
he was a cult
small
leader.
guy. He's an actor's size.
Yeah.
He's about 5'4" with that, nice head.
He was a
looks like Brad
songwriter.
Pitt.
Yeah, he almost was
Beach
touring
Boys.
with the Beach Boys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. So
touring, but like he knew them, and then that was a part of the whole thing was that I forgot what member of the Beach Boy, like sort of. Can you imagine? First of all, having that as just your friend. Charles Manson is just hanging around. Yeah. He's trying to make you give his shit record to your like very powerful record producer.
We all know
friends.
a certain comedian who does very similar things to Manson. We're not going to mention the name. But I mean, those personality types exist.
Yeah.
And I think it would be kind of fun to actually hang out with him for a little while until you realize, oh, you're serious. Once again, with all these cult people, are like, oh, no, I was just laughing. And he's like, why are you laughing at me, man?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought you were telling jokes. Oh, okay, never mind.
So crazy.
I just remembered I got to go pick up the chicken at the YMCA down over in Manaska.
Devil's in my brain.
So I'm going to go. So I'm just going to leave now.
Got devil in my shoes.
Okay, well, I like your shoes very much. Okay. This is interesting. He was born to an unwed mother when she was 16. I did not know this. She was an alcoholic. She sold him. What are the options? I'm giving you a crack. I'm giving you a beer. I'm giving you a new car. What did you sell him for, Marcus?
I'm gonna give you a new. I'm gonna guess beer.
Yeah, she sold him for beer.
Yeah.
If I was sold for beer by my 16-year-old mother, I would hate women too.
I just hate to say it at the same time. If I were to have some sort of emergency kid, I'd do the same exact thing.
Emergency kid?
You know, you just accidentally end up with the child, and I love beer, and I'm just sort of awkward with kids.
Let me ask you this: a case of Coors Light or a 6-pack of Dogfish Head IPA.
Case.
Yeah,
more
case
beer
for a baby. We're not animals.
I want more beer for it.
It would be hilarious if she was like, oh, 4 Old Englishes. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's okay.
They're 40 ounces, 40 full ounces. Oh, well, I had a sip out of one. Okay. See, I feel like he is a victim of the system. They returned him to his mother.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then she sent him to boarding school, which...
How's a 16-year-old afford boarding school?
Well, I would assume she was older at this point.
I'd assume so.
He was also bounced from boarding school to boarding school and eventually to jail immediately. I read Helter Skelter not too long ago, like talking about his life, and he was always a bad seed. You know, they were talking about he was ultra manipulative.
Right.
Like everywhere you go, not a single word ever, not a single true word ever came out of his mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Just one of those guys. I mean, that's the only way to get a woman, though, to be quite frank, especially in his mind.
Well, he's ugly.
He's ugly. He's a tiny man. And the women that he had kill for him, I don't quite have their...
Dude, Squeaky Fromme was pretty hot.
The only one, though.
Yeah.
The other ones were pretty gross.
Yeah.
But a woman's a woman, and when you're Charlie Manson, it's just cool to have your penis inside of something other than your own hands.
But the lead woman was the hottest one.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that was his whole thing, was to start a race war. That's like what he thought that they would do.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to the comment...
Sharon Tate.
Because they killed Sharon Tate, and the idea was to write these sort of incendiary messages, where they wrote Pig and Helter Skelter on the wall, and that...
It was spelled wrong, by the way.
Yeah. And that Charles Manson just believed that the police would see these heinous crimes and blame black people.
Right.
Because, I mean, he's also not smart, specifically. He's cunning, but he's not, like, actually smart.
He's a liar.
Yeah.
I think... going back to what we were talking about earlier with having a common enemy.
Yeah.
That was the busting into an actor's home who is, the quintessential has it all, beautiful, with child, married to a director.
Makes great, Polanski was a fucking amazing director.
It makes big news.
Hook, line, and sinker, and they totally went for it. Yeah, and the race thing, that's right. I mean, that was so perfect for the people that he was talking to. It was a white empowerment speech, and, just as Black Panthers or, whatever Mexican love group there is. It's one of the easiest.
I've heard the Mexican love group.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. They hate everybody else, but they love Mexicans. I mean,
it's just I just
feel bad because they're never going to enjoy a pierogi. Pierogies
are just so good, and they just don't boil things. They
don't do it right.
Oh. Charles Manson's whole story, though, is just such an interesting thing, especially in the time period it happened. It's like such an anti-love movement, like especially with everything else that was going on in California at the time.
Honestly, I think he makes more sense than the hippie movement. to some degree.
The sort of primal hate does.
Right.
What he felt, I guess, maybe was indicative of how the majority of people felt.
Well, I don't think that everybody was having a great
so.
time.
Most
I think they
people
got all these hippie images of everyone having a good time, tripping on the balls with the acid and everything. And they were just like, yeah, I'm working at a construction job, and I hate my fucking life, and I hate my fat wife, and I hate these kids. This American dream is a nightmare.
Yeah, bring on the race war.
I mean, it's definitely
that's just an intense thing to want.
Speaking of race wars, that's where he he went to jail for the first time after committing some robberies. And 1 month before his parole hearing, he raped a boy. By holding a razor to his throat. So perhaps he was worse than I gave him credit for in the beginning. And they released him 2 years later. I feel like you got to realize this guy isn't necessarily the best person on
They
earth.
just bounced him from place to place because nobody wanted him.
Well, yeah, prison should have wanted him. That's the problem. And then Manson went to pimp young girls, and that's where he started. He started with most of these girls were prostitutes, evidently, and
Yeah.
then he just went on from there.
He was a pimp for a while.
Well, last week he gave his first interview in 20 years.
Right. And I just want to say this. He had 18 women living with him.
Really?
18, and Charles Manson, not one man in the house.
I thought there was a dude. I thought there was like one other dude.
There's a couple of guys.
Yeah.
No, there are a couple of guys who did all the heavy work. There was
A couple of meatheads.
their
maybe.
names.
Like he had slaves.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
They weren't slaves though. There was the other thing too. It's another echo chamber scenario where instead of serving God so much, it was this weird sort of social thing.
Oh, and this is great. They lived on this guy George Spahn's ranch, and in order to get free rent, he just had Lynette Fromm. Her name was fuck him.
Yeah. He was this 80-year-old blind man who lived in this thing, and she would just go kind of suck his dick. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just. That was the saying. They would do anything, and they were a bunch of Hell's Angels used to hang out with them too, simply because Charlie would give them drugs and then make all the girls sleep with the Hell's Angels, and that one of the Hell's Angels kind of joined up with them for a little while, and just kind of thought it was all just sort of that he was just a kind of a kooky guy, and all these girls are just sort of here to kind of for free sex all the time, and then realized over time that it was very, very sinister.
Yeah.
Because they started talking about another dude that they had murdered that did end up happening.
Oh, my goodness. And he used Martin Luther King as evidence of the race war coming. Very interesting stuff there. All right. Well, good God. And I guess we're going to wrap it up there. I think it's been fucking awesome.
Has been, as
talking
always.
about these cults. And in the world of Charles Manson, now is the time for Helter Skelter. So go out and murder. This has been the last podcast on the left. We'll see you next week. Henry Zabrowski, Marcus Parks, I'm Ben Kissel. We love to talk about hate.
Get organized.
Just a nice piece of wisdom.
That's just good advice.
At the end of every show, clean your home.